Welcome to Gifted Underachievers, the podcast for mid-level creatives with delusional ambitions. In this segment, Pat and James talk with Burlington-based artist Kath Montstream. Topics include art as personal savior, marketing, finding a mentor, taking risks, accepting failure as part of the path, perseverance, inspiration needs to find you working, music as artist assistant, cold water dipping, Mother Mary in prayer, and, of course, delusional ambitions. Let's join the conversation. So here we are with Kath Montstream. She's a Burlington-based artist. She's been working as a full-time artist for 34 years, or is that a little longer, perhaps?
You do the math. I don't know. I think that's right.
Okay, for 34 years. Married, 3 grown kids, dogs, cats, found, and also importantly, founder of Red Hot Chili Dippers, which is a group of cold water immersion enthusiasts who swim in Lake Champlain most days. But if you go on Instagram and follow them, which I highly recommend, you can see Kath swimming in the winter just about anywhere she can find water deep enough. And it's really kind of cool and got me motivated to want to get into it. And I think probably motivated a lot of people. So it's a lot of fun. So please check it out. And she's also an incredibly talented artist. We'll have links to her work, her webpage, and one thing and another with the episode. So please look for that. She's wonderful. Check her out. And Kath, welcome. Thank you.
Well, thanks for having me. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. We're very happy to have you here. And so we were reading through your the bio that you sent us, and it's interesting. It tells a couple of stories, sort of infers a few stories, but certainly one of them is resilience. And you had this goal of going to the University of Vermont, affectionately known as Groovy UV or UVM, and they turned you down. You persisted. I believe they turned you down again.
Yeah, they
Wondering
did.
if you kind of tell that story because, one of the things about this whole, being able to achieve sort of the, mid-level career status as a creative is overcoming obstacles. And
Right.
some of us face more, some of us face less. And this obviously was a bit of an obstacle for you.
Yeah, I grew up in Connecticut and I couldn't wait to be. I grew up skiing, and so I just couldn't wait to be in Vermont as soon as I was old enough. And so going to college, the most obvious choice is UVM. Like, my goodness, who doesn't want to be in Burlington, Vermont, where Stowe is an hour away? The lake is down the street. Montreal is, 2 hours away. It's just perfect. And back then, of course, the drinking age was 18. So all those fun bars were open for me. But alas, I did not get in. My grades were not terrific. I don't think they, and I would give so much money to read. What did I write in my essay? It must have been probably how much I loved skiing and couldn't wait to be out of Connecticut. But I'm not sure. But I got a no, and I was like, okay, that's fine. That'll happen. And went to Green Mountain College instead, which was really great in Pulteney, now defunct. And
Cool.
I knew all along, I was like, I'll get into UVM when I transfer. You wait and see. So I was like, I got this. And people were like, oh, you should take some art classes. I'm like, no, those don't transfer. I'm going to go to UVM. I'm not taking any art classes.
Ugh.
So no way. So I apply for my junior year, I applied to go to UVM and CU Boulder. And in, oh gosh, January, I got a yes from CU Boulder. I still hadn't heard from UVM in May. And in June, I had an interview at UVM. And then they said no. So I was like running through the streets screaming, like, what do I do? I already said no to CU Boulder. But alas, CU Boulder took me, and I had a wonderful time in Boulder. I skied so much, and I was on their like club ski team. Loved it. So it worked out perfectly because I got to see another part of the world. And As soon as I was old enough, I was like, "I'm gonna live in Burlington, Vermont. They can't keep me out." So I moved here, kind of cold to Turkey, just knew these were probably gonna be my people, and Bernie Sanders was the mayor, and I was like, "Yep,
Wow.
I'm gonna like it there." So here I am all these years later.
Cool.
Good, good. And was art always, your passion and what you were gonna do, or did did you have to kinda find your way to it?
Art was always it was more of my savior, if you could use that, like religion. I'm not religious, but that really did save me in elementary school when I couldn't do a lot of other good things well. I wasn't a good student at all. I really had trouble staying focused. And God, I was terrible at kickball, which is the worst thing that can happen to you in elementary school because you just get picked last year after year after year. And it's like, oh my gosh, talk about like a boost or like a confidence deflator. It's like, oh
Yeah.
my goodness. And now I play like adult soccer. I don't know. I was just a late bloomer. And back then, my parents were kind of hippies, you know. If that had been my kids, I would have taken them out to the backyard and be like, "Let's learn how to contact on this ball." And play. I would have been like tutorialing my kids in kickball. Um, but art was like kind of the one thing that I got like some respect from the other kids all through elementary school and up through high school. That was the one thing I was sort of good at. So I feel like it kind of saved me, and I was really grateful that I had that. You know,
Mhm.
you
So
just need one thing that you can hang on to.
Yeah, it's a
and it
gift. Yeah.
yeah, and it gave you a sense of identity and self and purpose, right?
Absolutely, and you could feel the kids, like, walking behind you looking. It's like, "Oh, ha mine is good, I got this." But I really did feel like that was a place and fortunately, my parents saw that, and they enrolled me in every after-school summer program that they could, and I loved it, and
Yeah.
so I got to study at the Wadsworth Atheneum in Hartford, and, I had a really great plein air, teacher who took us all over to different places and museums to paint and draw. And so I feel really lucky that I had parents that really were paying attention and then trying to basically build on what they thought I was good at.
Yeah.
Besides kickball, I needed some help there, but they really helped me with my art.
Cool.
That's really cool. So my parents were very good at helping me with kickball and, terrible with helping me as a writer. I was like you, not a good student. For some reason, I could write, and I could write things that made the other kids laugh, and so that kinda helped give me that little bit of identity, and, did you as you're going through this and taking these classes and your parents are supporting you and that kind of thing, did you have as your goal, "I'm going to be an artist," or did that take a little bit of time too?
Oh, hell no, because I didn't want to be a bohemian and have no money. I wanted to buy a house and have a cool car, and I wanted to go skiing at Stowe. There's no way. Why would I be an artist? I'd be poor. And I had no desire. I wanted to be upwardly mobile in whatever way I could. So I knew that a career of art is not going to probably work out because really it doesn't for most people. And so I didn't have any idea. That was by accident, really.
Huh. That's
Yeah.
kind of amazing because the cards, you did 15,000 cards in 2 years?
Yeah.
Was that before like, what point in your trajectory was that a good did that seem like the way to go forward? Were you just
Well, I didn't plan on doing 15,000. It was just like stores would run out and I'd make more. And then
Oh.
the stores ran out and I'd make more. So it was kind of like I really all these things happened very organically. I am a goal oriented person, but I certainly had no goals around specifically becoming like, oh, if I could make this much money a month, I could actually, yeah, I probably did think of that. I could support myself. And I certainly did the numbers. So they cost me 10 cents to make the cost of the card and the envelope. And I was selling them for $1.50 at wholesale. So I was like, those numbers are great. And you're
Yeah.
selling dozens and dozens and dozens at a time. So I just have to paint them, right? No big deal. So anyway, I just got so I was really good at like manufacturing. I would set out this huge piece of paper, tape it off carefully. So you have all these grids, and then you do, so you get the orders come in dozens. So you have to always do 14 because two of your cows are going to look like monkeys and you can't, or camels. So you go and you do all the skies on the 14, and then you do all of the tulips, the yellow tulips, and drop in the color. Then you do all of the mountain range, and you just kind of build them, and then you pull the tape, and it's like, ah, and then you rip them up and tape, and then glue them down to a piece of plain cardstock and stamp the back, and boom, you owe me $1.50. And they would
Wow.
sell them for $3 and order dozens and dozens at a time. So I was kind of like, well, I can do this. This is fun, and it's better than my other two jobs. I was selling real estate, which was, really hard and interesting, but not something I really wanted to do. And I was a waitress, which was great, but I didn't want to do that for too long, a few years. So all of a sudden I was like, oh, I can do this. And what I didn't realize is I remember my watercolor teacher saying to me, how do you make a tulip so like so exact or perfect every time, like on these cards? And I was like, I don't know, I've already made like 500 of those this year or something. And what I didn't realize is I was doing the 10,000 hours to proficiency. That's
Mm.
like kind of like, isn't that how you get good at something? You just keep repeating it until and grow. And I
Yeah.
think I didn't know it, but that's what I was doing. So it was actually a really, really good time, those 2 years. I was just practicing my craft basically.
So
Mhm.
cool.
So that's how it started. And
And
then go ahead.
oh, well, it's just, curious, so obviously you had to do some marketing around the cards, and it wasn't just I made cards and then all of a sudden they sold. How did that kind of come together too?
Yeah, I was very brazen and would just go into stores, and I had a strategy. They don't want you to walk in and show them stuff because half the time it puts them on the spot. They don't
Yeah.
want that. So what I did is walk in to make an appointment. So instead of calling, I'd be like, "Hey, my name's Kath Montstream and I make handmade watercolors. Is there a time that you're green card buyer might be willing to take a look at these?" And most of the time they'd say, "Oh, well, what do you got? Let's see." So then I felt like they would see them and they're like, "Oh, these are cool." So I feel like most of the stores said yes. And then I just started getting orders and I'm like, "Oh, I got to do that. I got to fill this order." And so it became kind of like it was fun for a while. Then it got really hard because I realized near the end of the 2 years I couldn't grow the business. I could only make so many a year.
Mhm.
So it really had like a stopping point of, and I was getting a little burnt out. So I knew that there was definitely, I knew I just couldn't grow it. That was it. So that's when we decided to print the images on, offset printing and then go to the Javits Center and see the world at the stationery show, which is very exciting and overwhelming, and try to get some reps. And then start printing cards, which I call feeding the dragon because they always need new ones. It's like, oh my God, oh my God. But that's what we do. Been feeding that dragon for what, 30, however many years you said. It's been a
Wow.
while. I, I always encourage people to check stuff out, but keep your other jobs. And I think that was really important is I kept my other two day jobs or my night job and really didn't rely on it and throw all my eggs into one basket because that's too stressful. But
Mhm.
I think it just sort of was happening. Like there's something about art, it's so subjective. And I don't know why people like my art, but they have always been, I've had wonderful patrons over the years. And so for some reason, I get a response from people that makes them really happy and they feel joy and they tell me that they love looking at it. And so I guess the difference is, do people actually write a check or Venmo you, or do they just clap? And they seem
Yeah.
to write checks. So I was like, okay, I'll have another show. And then
Awesome.
yeah, it was very surprise. Every time it was surprising. Like, oh, that sold, all those sold. Oh, okay, I'll make some more paintings, I guess.
Oh,
Cool.
that's great. That's great. But at the same time, I don't mean to imply that there wasn't perseverance because you are working hard and you are producing 15,000, postcards, and then from there growing that into, what you're doing now. And maybe you could give a little description of that transition because in your bio you mentioned that there was a fellow named Larry Goldsmith
Yeah.
who acted as something of a mentor.
Yeah, he was wonderful. After not getting into UVM, I decided to enroll in UVM continuing education because, there's no application, you just have to pay. So I
Yeah.
did get into that. Um, so Larry Goldsmith was kind of like the OG of like painting like these loose, open watercolors that are just very expressive and big. And I was just stunned by his work. It was like I was painting like little kittens, with balls of yarn and men models with horses but badly. And I just like had tiny little brushes and a seal on a rock I just didn't know how to be expressive or loose. And so meeting Larry Goldsmith was so instrumental for me because I understood what he did. Like I just was like, oh my God, that's what I want to do. You start with a whole page wet and you just lay in the color and then start to tip it. And so that opened me up to really finding like my style and and it's fast. So it was like really like I can produce really quickly. I'm not agonizing over a painting for a month. It's like I can do this and it can be quick. It doesn't always work the first try, but that's okay. So he was really helpful to me. And I would go up to him. I remember I would say, I don't know what to do. What should I do with this painting? And he'd just look at it and he'd say, sign it.
Oh, wow.
So he was very quietly, I think I was probably one of his better students. And I think we really clicked. And so it, I ended up like taking classes and visiting with him for 17 years. And he had a house in Monhegan with his wife, and so I'd go out to Maine, this island where Jamie Wyeth has his house and all these cool people. And yeah, it was really a great relationship and I learned so much from him. If I hadn't met him, I don't know if I really would have figured out how to open that up and make it, the art that it is today. So I'm super grateful for he has a book out called Watercolors Bold and Free, and it's
Mm.
still being published even though he passed away maybe a dozen years ago now, but it's a great book. And
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, I want to do that. That looks fun. That's cool.
Yeah.
Forget about my horses and my kittens. Those are bad.
So he helped you find your voice as an artist. We've talked about mentorship in a past segment and thinking of it in terms of one helping you improve as an artist or a creative person, but also potentially opening some doors and getting broader access. Was that part of that relationship as well?
Um, I think because he allowed me to really change up what I was doing, it became more accessible to like having my first shows, and I kind of understood like, oh, I can do this because I don't have to just make little cards, like I can make big paintings. And so once I figured that out and started understanding like how to do it, like there was so much of it is I mean, obviously it's expression and it's talent, but for him, but for me it was also learning how do you do that? And then once I saw it, I was like, "Oh, I get it. I see what you're doing and I want to try that." So, I think I always feel like I got like an IV from him to me. It was just like, "Yeah, I got
Oh,
this."
cool. So even with the sort of logistics or business end of getting into galleries or getting your own gallery, did you learn from Larry on that too, or was that kind of all over the place in?
Yeah. No, I think I mostly once the painting started selling, then it was just a matter of having exhibits and having a place to paint that, was my own and not just at home in a corner. So I really didn't He didn't, that wasn't part of what I learned from him. He was just such an inspiration to keep painting and to do it in a way that was joyful and unexpected and unpredictable.
Yeah, cool. I love that sign it, you know, which
Yeah,
I just sign it. It's like,
yeah.
I've been a writer in residence in one of they have a library program here. And he says, I had a story I was working on and he read part of it and said, yeah, what, and I was like, what should I do? He's just like, send it out, start sending it out. And
Mhm.
it's so weirdly, it's all you needed, but
Yeah,
you couldn't say that to yourself because you've got no objectivity around your own work. So to have somebody say that to you is like something you never forget.
right. It is
Yeah.
true. It was very, yeah, kind of cathartic and
Mhm.
like, oh, I'm onto something here.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that was very, very fortunate that I had the courage to take that class. And I was, it's always scary taking a class because you think, what if I'm terrible? What if everybody's, you're just like, oh God, here we go. But
Yeah.
it was great. I'm glad I got out of the car. I was very nervous. And I think my husband was sort of pushing me out the car, go, go do it, go, get out,
Yeah. That's
because I
very
was
cool.
scared.
So there's
Yep.
that gumption as an artist, right? That as you said, having the courage to take the class and then get out of the car and go to the class and feeling a little bit of that, am I good enough? And
Yeah.
being able to overcome that. And you have daughters, and when in your virtual tour of your studio, you show some of their artwork, and they're both very good too. Do you find yourself encouraging other artists? And if so, how do you do that? What are your thoughts about, being a mentor as well as being mentored?
Mm. I think, for me, what I like to focus on is with people if they ask me is, to not give up. Like, we're all going to make paintings that we hate and just think, my God, what am I doing? This is awful. And that's when most of us stop. We put down our brushes and we just don't go back to it. So you have these big gaps. And I try to encourage people to work through that, take advantage of those times when you're painting things that you just think are the worst things ever, because that's a, you don't have to save it. That's a chance to get out some different mediums and try coloring on it with colored pencils, or fold it up. And what would happen if you took a quarter of that page? Actually, that quarter is really nice.
Cool.
And really not stopping because what you're doing is making you is it's not bringing you joy and it's bringing you angst. I get that. That happens to me all the time. But I know I have to work through that. And that's, I guess, the difference between being someone who makes a living doing it versus a hobby. I think if it's a hobby, you just want to give up and be like, "Ugh, this isn't fun. Why should I?" But
Mhm.
in the Dutch soccer league or football, there's a statistic that you have to shoot 11 times to get a goal
Mhm.
in their professional league. So that means you have to fail 10 times before that. And when you're failing on number 8, you're like, "Oh, good. I am only 3 away from getting a goal statistically." And
Wow.
when you miss on number 10 in a row you've missed, yay, statistically the next one is I'm going to score. So I
Good.
love that because that's really also kind of the same with art. Sometimes you just go through these paintings that are just not doing anything for you, but you got to push through. And I think that's my best advice that I try to give to people, because otherwise we just stop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're like, you're discouraged. And it's like, well, why would you go back to that?
Mhm.
So,
It's
how do
easy to
you
stop.
it is easy to stop, and so how do you go back to it the next day and go, "Oh, yeah, I wanna paint again." It's like, "No, I don't. I hate what I did."
Yeah.
So, I think I'm learned that that is part of my process. It's like anything, you're not gonna be better at the gym every single day, and you're not gonna be better at painting every single day, and you're not gonna be better at singing every day, whatever. Like, you have to accept the failures of as part of the process.
Yeah.
Mhm. And you mentioned in that, which I think is really nicely worded, that you still feel angst
Oh,
sometimes.
yeah.
You
Oh
still
my god.
what what angst do you feel? I asked that knowing that I feel angst constantly.
Yeah, I feel the angstiest of the angst. I just can't. It's just like this frustrating, like discouraging, yeah, feeling, and you just. But I do know it's part of it, but it's really. I wish I could skip it, and I think you know, but yeah, I just it's so subjective. It's not like I always say, God, I wish I just worked at City Market because you could say, here's these dirty carrots, wash all these, and then line them up nicely in the box.
Yeah.
Okay, then you could check it off. But with art, like you could work on it for an hour and make it worse. And
Yeah.
Right.
it's like, oh my God, what am I doing? I don't know. Oh, this is stupid. What am I doing? You can kind of get inside your head about it. And even though I've had a lot of success, I still do that. And but I do, but I do know I just need to work through that. That's part of it. I think of
Mm.
the Dutch League. I'm gonna
Mhm.
fail a lot before I get on to something. Something will happen, and there's a great quote by Picasso. It says, "Inspiration will find you. Inspiration is there, but it needs to find you working."
Oh,
And
wow.
that makes sense to me. Don't just procrastinate and sit around and think, like, do something, make some marks on a paper, even if it's for 15 minutes or 10. Don't maybe just marks, not even a real painting of anything in particular. And I do love that. I feel like once you start making marks and mixing colors, you will have those aha moments. I can't say
Mm.
when, and you don't know when they're going to come, but you're trying to get to that. And so I can't get to it unless I start painting.
Wow.
Great. So
Yeah.
there's, the creatives, artists, writers, what have you, who will be, I'm waiting for the muse, right? I can't produce until I feel motivated, until I feel like
Yes.
yada
Oh
yada.
God.
And for
Everyone says,
you,
yeah, you
it's
have to
more
wait
about
to get.
get down to work, be an artist.
Yes. And most people are like, oh, you have to wait to be inspired. It's like, oh heck no. If I had to wait to be inspired, I'd do 2 paintings a year.
Yeah.
No, I can't wait for that. That's just silly. No, but they
And
don't know, and that's a great question, but I'm like, "No, you just have to do it." Like laundry, you just gotta keep up with it.
as mid-career artist, let's say, you have some confidence that when you're feeling that angst and anxiety, and I don't know if I can do this, that you have this sense of no, 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 I can do it. Let me get into my process. And that's it. And do you find that just getting into your process, the like you said, the mixing of colors, the setting up of a canvas on an easel, whatever, however you describe your process, helps bring some calm?
Yeah, I think, well, there's 2 things I need to do, is sometimes I just need to stop and clean up and get my feng shui back, and if it's just chaotic, I find that really distracting, and I'm so easily distracted that that kind of bothers me. So sometimes it's like, "You know what? I'm gonna take the morning and I'm gonna rearrange and put things," and then it feels like, "Okay, fresh start, here we go." And then the other thing is music. I just can't paint without it. It helps me get to that zone that we're all trying to find, where we lose track of time and we're just in it. And it's like, oh, I'm in it. How did I get here? I don't know. Shut up. Keep painting. Uh, so music without it, sometimes I start painting, and if I don't have music on, I'm just like, oh, wow, I'm not feeling it. I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot to. So
Yeah.
that's really important for me personally, not everybody, but is like taking the time to kind of put things in order and fix up my paints, and that really kind of clears my mind and helps me to kind of relax and be like, okay, this place looks good, we're ready to work now. I feel like that's really nice.
Yeah.
And so gotta ask, what music? What helps
Yeah.
you?
Yeah, I figured you were gonna ask that. I'm like, "Ooh." Well, I use Spotify because I like Spotify because it knows me. We are we are best friends. It knows my music, and I think that is genius. Best $12 a month ever spent. But, I love Radiohead, although sometimes it's a little too, kind of sad, and a little bit too heavy for me, but I just cry through it.
Oh,
So I do love Radiohead. That's really good to paint to. I love Prince. I love, like, a lot of contemporary artists, and I can listen to like certain people that have like kind of indie style or bluegrass. It just depends
Mhm.
on my mood. And then pop, I love Billie Eilish. I'll listen to Justin Timberlake. That's great. Like so. Oh, Stevie Wonder.
Yeah.
I've been doing songs in the key of life like over and over again lately because the whole thing is so good.
Yeah.
So, and then if I don't know, it doesn't matter. My best friend Spotify knows what I like, so he can decide for me. And I do love that, and I find new music. So I'm very grateful for that option because otherwise I think I would spend too much time thinking about what do I want to listen to, and this way it just
Mhm.
starts.
Yeah.
And so music with lyrics doesn't throw you off,
No,
'cause
not at all.
then,
No, no,
you
no.
know
That's not in the least. I don't know if I could do podcasts. I
Mm,
think that would
yeah.
be I like the idea of it. Not sure. I haven't really done that. I love the idea of podcasts, but I hardly ever get around to listening to them because anytime I have time, I usually go to music.
yeah.
So,
Mhm.
um, but if I'm driving, then I can listen to podcasts.
Yeah.
But I haven't done that much with painting. But during the pandemic, I got so I could watch the Metropolitan Opera, and I put the phone on top of my easel so I could watch the opera and paint.
Oh, wow.
That was really fun. I was just like you're kinda like it was sort of like cheating. It's like I'm watching your opera and painting your sky. Um,
It's like exercising, and watching a movie at the same time or something.
yes.
You're
Yeah,
killing
it
2
was
birds. Yeah.
Yeah, it was really neat. It was and I obviously couldn't have painted something like I was working on something really cerebral that was like really intense, but like if I'm just painting another like something that I'm familiar with, like the lake or the sunset or I can do that. I know the steps. And you're not gonna finish it, but I can at least get a layer in and
Yeah.
watch the opera, Madame
Yeah.
Butterfly.
And they've got such great costumes too. I don't know how much detail you can see on your phone, but that kind of visual thing
Yeah. No,
might be
you kinda
cool.
can see you can see it better than you think,
Yeah.
It's you're stepping close and moving back, and I don't know, you kinda it was interesting, that was kind of a fun little experiment to do that, just trying to mix it up during pandemic anything to change the channel, it's just
Yeah.
so
Yep.
stressful.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that was great.
And
Cool.
then, gotta ask, how does Red Hot Chili Dippers fit in all of this? Is
Yeah,
this
right. Well, it really started during the pandemic because it was just so stressful. Every day you're just like, "Oh my god, are we all going to die, and in what order?"
Yeah.
Like, "Am I first or am I last?" It was just terrifying and, the all like, well, with everything in life, the things that are the scariest are the unknown, and so we were in a position of having this incredible unknown and then also seeing what was actually happening around the world. So I just felt like I needed to like conk my head with a hammer or something, but that wasn't a good idea. I just needed to do something to like again change my channel. And so I had gone in cold water before, but that just seemed like a really good idea because you just want to forget about everything for a minute. And so during that time your body is walking into the cold water, you do forget about all of your own internal your head sort of spills out
Yeah.
because you can't hold it because your body's like, oh, we're gonna die. This is really
Yeah.
cold. We will not survive this. So that's the beauty of it. It's like this palate cleanser in this really terrific way. And I don't like doing it. It's really hard and it hurts and it's terrible. And oh my gosh. But I love how I feel after. So
Mm,
happy and proud of myself. So I
yeah.
found that was really helpful. And then I would post a picture and people were like, well, when are you doing that again? I want to come. And so it was something we could gather and do. It was outside. We could stay away from each other. Some people we even wore masks. And it became kind of a little band of people that really wanted to do that. So that was kind of where it started. And then I was like, oh, we need a name. So I was throwing all these dorky names around that were very generic. And my youngest daughter goes, oh, Red Hot Chili Dippers. And I was
Yeah.
like, that's it. That's brilliant. I love it. And like, that's it. So then we just decided, and then I had all these, have you heard of Pechakucha?
No.
Pechakucha is a form of showing slides to an audience.
Hmm,
You can only show each slide for 20 seconds and speak about that slide for 20 seconds, and then it changes. And you only get 20 slides. So you have 7 minutes.
wow.
And it started in Japan when architects, I believe, spoke too long about the designs that they were projecting or offering up to their committee or whatever. So it's a way of really cleaning up your presentations in a very concise way. And so I had prepared to do Pechakucha about cold water dipping. I have all these great photos. And then it got canceled. But then I was like, well, I guess I'll just take these pictures and put them on a new Instagram page and call it Red Hot Chili Dippers. And that's how it sort of started.
Awesome.
So I love photography, and I love looking at images and light. So to me, that's like half the fun, is this juxtaposition of this barely almost naked body in this like extraordinarily extreme cold. Like, it makes no sense. And to me, that's makes very arresting photographs. It's
Yeah.
like, what the actual F is happening here? How is
Hmm.
this even a thing? So to
It's
me, I love that part. It's so exciting and like, and kind of very unexpected in a lot of ways that you can do that. Like, it doesn't
Mhm.
make sense. And that's what I love.
Yeah.
very cool. Yeah, I
And
saw one of your Instagram photos. There's a like a I want to call it merch. It's like a little round black badge with red hot chili dippers.
Yeah.
Did you how did you make that, or where
Oh,
is
was
there
it a
more than
stick?
one?
Was it a sticker maybe?
It might have been a sticker, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I ordered a bazillion stickers. I hand them out
Yay!
at, the open dips, and it's so cool. You see them on people's water bottles, makes me so happy. So
Awesome.
I have, oh, here, it's on my on my it
Oh,
oh,
that's
very
cool.
cool.
yeah, so
Yeah, I
that's my
love it.
daughter's, she does, linoleum block carving, so I had
Oh,
her carve that out, and so we have T-shirts and we have sweatshirts, and mostly just for our more, immediate group, which is, like, around 20 of us,
yeah.
but then the stickers I just would hand out at open what I call open dips, which is when I open it up to everybody. I don't do that very often, like, maybe once a week or a couple times a month,
Wow.
'cause I'm very it's hard when you get new people that don't have experience. You see them coming and it's extreme. And
Yeah.
it
Mhm.
looks like we make it look really fun because it is, but we're also acclimated. And
Yeah.
so it's hard when new people come in the middle of the winter. You're like, oh no,
Yeah.
I hope he doesn't have a heart attack. And we've never really had anything bad happen, but it is, I do have to remind myself and others that it is, something could happen.
It kind of in the context of merch, chili dipping, all that kind of stuff, bring up the crass topic of marketing.
Mm,
And I is that I think, Pat and I talk about this as a conscious effort. It's something that we do with intention. And is that true for you as well?
in which realm? In
Mm.
the art world?
Well, in your
Art
uh,
world,
art
yes.
role, yeah.
I am I am bananas on marketing, and I don't like it, but it really is important. And so what does that mean? To define that for me, like, my daughter and I are having an exhibit that opens next Thursday, and it's both of our paintings that are, it's called Color of Snow, and it's all
Mm.
about winter and heavy tree laden, snow laden tree branches and swimming holes in winter, waterfalls, just pure color of snow, and some really plain, like Rothko-esque paintings that she did. So
Oh,
how do I get people there? Well, there's like 12, I have to really work hard. It's like make postcards and hang on. Make postcards and pass them out and make sure you talk to your friends about it. Emailing people, email lists, local papers need to be told. You need to text the people that have bought paintings in the past, and the list just goes on and on. And
yeah.
it's great, but without doing that, people aren't going to come. It's just not like you've got to let people know, and every which way you can think of.
And that's the clearest I've ever heard it put about, especially about how to get people out to shows, because I've been going to a lot of readings lately. I had a book come out and I was trying to figure out how to flog it.
Yeah.
So I started going to everybody's readings that I could find, and it really is. If you don't tell people, nobody shows. It's
No.
illogical, but there's this kind of idea in some creative, like artists, not necessarily visual artists, but writers and so on, in their minds that doing it is enough, and then it's up to the publisher. Or it's up to, if you have a
Mm.
gallery, it's up to the gallery, and it's really not.
Mm-mm. No, and I think, well, we have, since I have my own gallery, like it'd be nice if somebody else was doing all that, but since
Mhm.
it's me, I just have to focus on it. And I like to say, hey, it's free beer, like I
Yeah,
sort of make a joke about it, but I think that, yeah, they're not going to come. And I feel like for me, it's like when you've been working on something for like, maybe this has been 10 months. It's like I just want people to see it.
yeah,
They might buy it, they might not, but I really just want people to come and see both of our work and what we've really poured everything into. And so to me, that's what it's about. So it's like not being afraid the main thing, I know this is such a pain, is individually contacting people either by a quick text with a photo or sending out personalized postcards, and that takes so much time, but that works so much better than social media. Social media is great, but people don't really catch it. And
yeah,
I'm always like, when I tell people, they're like, "Oh my god, that sounds so great." Well, they clearly haven't seen my posts,
yeah,
they didn't know about it. But and that's hard to do, but I think asking people to come is, they like that. And,
yeah.
Mhm.
it's like, "Oh, yeah." He's like, "Will you please come to my reading? I'm going to read next Thursday around." "Oh, yeah, gosh, I'd love to." So you feel kind of like, "Oh, that person asked me. That's nice." So you have
Yeah.
to kind of get over yourself, like, and be, well, like, a little brazen about it. But it's a little easier doing it with my daughter because I can kind of say, "Oh, you got to see her new work. You're gonna love it."
Yeah.
And there is free beer.
Yeah.
But I yeah, I think I think that's really hard doing that. I think I'm kind of good at it, but it's hard. It's like
Yeah.
every day for about 2 weeks, I'm working on that every day for maybe an
Mhm.
hour or more,
Yeah.
of different
Yeah.
angles.
And I think it's interesting that, I agree with you that social media, its ability to actually move people is pretty limited. And in
Mhm.
publishing, for a long time, they talk about platforms. So if you pitch a book to an agent or a publisher, they want to see a huge platform. And one of the ways they measure that is by how many, followers, social media followers you have.
Mm, right.
But it actually doesn't translate necessarily into sales because people like Justin Timberlake, Billie Eilish have published memoirs with huge advances that massively underperformed, because they were kind of relying on that social media presence. And
Right.
I think it's great that you're taking it out of that realm and saying, no, 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 let's bring it back a little bit more real world
Yeah.
and
Yeah, I think, yeah.
you know,
Well,
connect.
then, and you hope then there's some, word of mouth, and, you just have to go for it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then my daughter are doing the same, so, we should have hopefully a good turnout between the 2 of us. Because the last thing you want is to put on one of these events and look around and be like, "Where is everybody?" Like, I
Yeah.
never want that to happen. So that's why I partly probably is my ego, I don't want that to happen, and I know how to avoid that. I just have to keep asking people or telling them about it, and dropping 10 more postcards in the mail, and
Yeah.
getting out that, email newsletter blast. That the emails work pretty well.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's
Yeah.
just it's part of it. Yeah,
Well, it's
I just
kind of a dichotomy, because it's like you have to get over yourself. Like I just went to my high school reunion and there's a lot of very successful people. And then there's, people like me, like we're doing fine. We're doing okay, but it's not the New York Times bestseller list by any stretch. And so I handed out bookmarks, to basically everybody there. And so in that aspect, you have to get over yourself. But at the same time, if you want people to buy the whatever, or even just to come to the show or come to the reading, um, you also have to care enough to say, yeah, I'm gonna get the merch, bring the stuff, get the postcards printed, send the emails,
Mhm.
And you don't strike me as an introvert. Maybe an ambivert. I'm not. I'm not a trained psychologist, but I got a. We just interviewed my buddy Doug, who's a musician, and he's like, yeah, the emailing at night. It's to individuals to say, will you review my? We got an album coming out. We'd love a review. He's like, it's so inefficient and ineffective, but it's the only way to get the reviews.
Yeah.
So I guess
Yeah.
it is effective, but yeah.
Right, and then yeah, no, it's absolutely and I find if the most of the time, if I send them out to a lot of people, it's boy, you just don't get a response. But if I take the time to kind of individualize that, and obviously you can't do that a lot, but I can do like the top 75 people that
Wow.
are either friends or have patrons or for one reason or another they've supported us or have curiosity about us. So we try to really get those people to know about it and hope they
Yeah.
come and take a peek, you know?
Yeah. I know,
Mhm.
I'm flattered when somebody invites me to go to their thing. I'm like, "Oh god, yeah, of course."
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Everybody likes having an artistic friend, you know?
Right, and art well, and I think art openings are easy to say yes to because you can come and stay as long as you want, and it's social, and if it's too much, you can leave. It's not like you're performing a piece that you actually have to sit down and listen
Yeah.
to. It's
Mm.
very come and go, and so
Yeah.
hopefully you're piquing their interest and curiosity to come back,
Yeah. It's
for the
chill. I love the title of the exhibit, The Color of Snow. That's really
yeah.
beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah, I did not think of that. That was again my daughter. I was gonna call it something else, and she was like, no. What about that?" I was like, "Okay, yeah, that's better."
Yeah.
So it's good
Very
to have
cool.
some words, people who are good wordsmiths. They
Yeah.
kind of come up with clever, clean, quick ways to yeah, they're yeah, clever. Yeah, it's the best way to think of it. It's like good idea.
Yeah. And there's kind of an elegance to that title, Color of
Yeah.
Snow. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's also so true, like, her piece she has a diptych that's, again, very, like, Rothko-esque, and it's just, like, these different tones of, like, pale, warm yellow sliding over to, like, a bluer snow, and then a line, and then a different snow color on the bottom, and it's just like, "Oh my god," they're so subtle, but they're so gorgeous, and it's like,
Wow.
yeah, that really describes the color of snow, and we have lots of paintings that are much, very colorful and contrasty, but some of them are really subtle. And we're like, we have to put these others somewhere else so they can quietly talk to people and not be overshadowed by the ones that are like the big trees and all the snow
Yeah.
falling.
Yeah.
So
Is
we're,
she a full-time artist as well?
yeah, she is, which is just absolutely mind blowing to me.
Yeah.
Very proud of her. She had the talent, but I didn't know if she would be able to like put it together and make it a business, and she
Mhm.
has. And I'm really proud that she mimics a lot of my business model, even though I don't know if she would say she does, but just understanding how to do commissions, what ones are okay. Do you take a deposit? Do you not? How do you engage with people that want you to paint a certain way? And is it okay to repeat paintings because they're popular? All these things
Yeah.
that
Mhm.
um, are like things that I have a lot of experience with. So really
Wow.
happy that that's been something
Yeah,
she's been able to
and
So
that's
that's a
inter.
mentorship piece.
Yeah, and thinking of it, you just asked a bunch of questions that I would have never thought that artists even ask. I would assume that there's all these things I don't know, obviously, about being an artist and making a living as an artist. But do you repeat a painting? Do you take a deposit? Do all these kinds of things? And did you learn these by experience, or how did you come by that knowledge?
yeah, experience because you know, I learned I don't take deposits because what I'll say is first of all, if they want me, they say, "Do you do commissions?" And like, "Well, tell me what you're thinking about." It has to be in the realm of what I'm already painting. So I'm not going to paint. A lot of people say they want their house painted, not like their house painted, but
Yeah.
a painting house of their house.
That would be $35,000.
Yeah, that would be very good. But they want a paint, or whatever, and then I have to say, "Yeah, I'm not doing architecture right now, so that or people or dogs or robots or zombies." So none of those things. So if they want, one of my favorite examples is a couple commissioned me to come up and paint their little Fenway Park, adorable little wiffle ball Fenway, and I knew I wasn't going to paint it. I was like, oh, let me come out. I was like, no, there's no way. Um, so I get there and I'm like, this is so cool. Little Fenway with the green monster. Everything about it was so cool. But if you turn around, look at this view
Yeah.
from Little Fenway. It's this valley with a farm and the barn, and then there's Camel's Hump. That's what I can paint for you. I would like to paint the view from your beautiful. And they were like, oh my God, yeah.
Yeah.
And what I love to say is, this is a lot of money. I want to make sure you get my best work. And my best work would come from this view. Probably I can give you a name of someone who might be able to paint this field
Yeah.
if that's something you wish. But I want to give you my best work.
Yeah.
And they always agree. I mean, of course, they don't, that's, so that works out. So I take commissions, but very limited. And then I don't take any money because I said, I'm going to show it to you first before I bring it. I'm painting it for me, for my gallery inventory. I'm hearing what you like, and I'm keeping that in mind, the size you want, but I will basically send you a JPEG and you can come and look at it. And then you have basically first right of refusal.
Yeah.
Is that how you say it?
Yeah.
So, but they don't have to take it. It can just, I know I'll be able to sell it. So I'm
Yeah.
not going to paint something that's out of my character of my subject.
Mhm. And
Wow,
and
that
does anybody ever not taken a commission? I mean, has anybody
Yeah,
ever yeah?
occasionally.
Yeah.
Not in a long time. Not in a long time. I think usually I have tried twice in the last couple of years. Like, I just didn't feel like they were responding the way I wanted, and I just was feeling that, and I'm like, and I said, you know what? Let me try again, and let me put this in the gallery. And I loved the second one, and they were really happy. And I don't want someone to spend thousands of dollars and not love it,
Yeah.
and they
right.
feel kind of obligated. I feel like I can sort of sense that if there's a hesitation.
Yeah.
So I don't mind sometimes taking a second stab at it because now I have inventory. You just helped me build inventory from my gallery, which turns
Mhm.
over fairly quickly.
Yeah, great. That's a
But
really
then I
positive way.
wonder. Oh, go ahead, Pat.
I was just gonna say that's a really positive way to look at it, you know? I could learn something. I'm getting inspired.
Yeah, yeah, I know. Well, I was just gonna say that, so I do my own writing, but I earn my living as a ghostwriter.
Ah,
And so I'm trying to figure out what the the lesson is in there that can I go to a client and say, I'm gonna write this for me, but it's gonna be your story.
yes,
So if
right,
you like it, we'll talk about the price. But I think,
right.
that may not work, but I think
I don't know.
you incorporate that kind of um mindset to
Yeah, it gives me freedom that way, and then I
Yeah.
don't have like I don't feel particularly. And mostly if they're gonna mostly before I start, they'll change their mind about something or it's more money than they thought. And so that happens a lot. And that's not a lot, but that's fine. I get it.
Yeah.
Um, so it's just so trial and error and also where do I feel comfortable? And so in the beginning, I did commissions of anything, and I have my favorite is Mother Mary in prayer, a profile of her, which is like the most hilarious thing to me. I just can't believe I did it. And it turns out I painted her hands too small and the woman rejected it. So I was so upset. I was like, God, I had to paint that. It was so hard and now it's rejected. So I did what any logical human would do is I put it in my garage sale that next week with free on the bottom. Free. And no one took it. I was like, "What? It's Mother Mary in prayer. Why are you not taking this?" It really was bad. So, as it turns out, I kept her, and she is now priceless, and someday, if there's ever a retrospective of my work, that I hope that she is included because she just is like the beginning of my career, really understanding what you can say yes and what you can say no to.
That cracks me up, the tiny-handed Mother Mary.
Yes.
You
Ugh,
know?
or as my son said, I'm gonna say, well, he said it looked like a part of the anatomy that might be a male. I'm not gonna say it, what he said. He did. I was like, "All right, all right."
How big is it? Just curiosity.
Well, it's just that
Come on now,
size.
Because size really matters.
No one had ever said that before, and I thought, "Yeah, okay, I can see that."
That's hilarious.
I know.
Ah,
Well,
So when I
so
frame it someday, I guess I should give it to him, my son. He
yeah.
should have that.
yeah, there you
But the gift that keeps on giving, I don't know.
Yeah.
Oh god.
So, you mentioned, having a retrospective of your work and I'm going to use that as a segue that so in our subhead to the title we talk about delusional ambitions and really what we mean by that is all of us get into this probably initially and I think we all have these sort of ambitions of, for Pat it's winning the Booker Prize, right?
Yeah, it was. I
Um,
changed my mind. I
yeah.
don't wanna win it anymore.
Oh, you don't want to win it anymore? Okay.
I mean, I'd take it, but I have a better plan.
And, for me, it's probably winning the Booker Prize, plus having some, David Sedaris like monster reading where you fill Symphony Hall in Boston, right?
Yeah.
People show up. Do you have one of those? Do you have, that kind of delusional ambition that someday?
Yeah, well, I used to always my goal was to have like an art exhibit and opening in New York City at a gallery. Like, how cool would that be? And so for a while, I did try to get into galleries, and then I just was like, you know what? This is working so well here. I'm just kind of gave up on that and decided that why do I want to give a gallery half the money anyway?
Yeah.
So I just decided it's good to have my own gallery and that works. So I don't think I have any right now. Yeah, I love that though. That anytime you think of a lot of people being excited about what you do, that's pretty special.
Yeah.
And it doesn't really get old. It's very nice when people get excited or fangirl me. It's so sweet. Oh my god, I love your work.
Yeah.
It's great. I love that. My husband always says, "Yeah, well, when I met her, she was a waitress." Get over it.
He knew you when.
Yeah, so funny.
And then do you plan on growing what you're doing? Do you plan on expanding it, shifting to a different mode of art? Or are you kind of happy exploring, where you are right now?
I mean, I think for me as a visual artist, I'm always looking for the next thing that hits you over the head. And it's just like, oh my God, I have to paint that. And, one time it was African dance, like the exposure of this beautiful drumming and these colors and speed. Like I did a whole exhibit on that. And then the Moran plant, which was a abandoned power plant that I just was so obsessed with the size and scale and the rust and the peeling paint. Like there's just sometimes something hits you and it's just like, yeah, I really, really want to paint that and really explore it in depth. So I don't know what the next thing is right now. It's winter and it's about exploring these quiet places in the woods that are deep in snow and maybe has a river, or maybe a swimming hole. These are places that my dad loved winter so much, and he passed away a year ago. We were very
Oh,
close, and so this show is like dedicated to like honoring his like love and passion for winter sports and winter. So I think you're just kind of like always looking for that next thing of what, and I don't know what that's going to be. And in the meantime, I go to my go-tos, which I love to paint flowers. I love to paint sunsets. I mean, it's sort of cliche, but I'm doing it my own way and I like doing that. So I think you just kind of waiting to see what something you're going to see is going to strike you in a way that's like, oh, and have that aha moment.
yeah.
And I don't know when it'll be, but
I love that. That's so cool. I know what you mean. I get the same similar thing. Like right now, I'm super into reinvention. Like what's it about? I guess a lot of my friends are retiring, and so retiring young. And I'm just like, wow, what do you do now if you've always worked a jobby job your whole life? Anyway, so that's my big obsession, and that's all I really want to write about. but I can go for years between that kind of idea.
And it's not so much like a set process that you have, and it's not like a very Andy Warhol, you know, intentionality. It's really about exploring and doing the work and showing up, and you'll find it, and it'll find you.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know what else I'd do, so you just keep doing it.
Thanks for listening to Gifted Underachievers, the podcast for mid-level creatives with delusional ambitions. And a big thanks to Kath Montstream for spending so much time with us and doing such a wonderful interview. We really appreciate it. We'd love to hear how we're doing, so please leave a comment, join our chat page, or send us an email at giftedunderachievers@substack.com. Have an awesome day.